Psalm 81 is a beautiful yet convicting chapter in the Bible that combines both celebration and warning. It begins with an invitation to worship and remember God's mighty acts, but also carries a sobering reminder about the dangers of turning away from Him. Written by Asaph, one of the chief musicians appointed by King David, this psalm likely played a role in Israel's sacred festivals. Today, we will explore Psalm 81 verse by verse, uncovering its historical setting, theological depth, and personal relevance for believers. Historical background. Clock. Psalm 81 was possibly sung during the Feast of Trumpets, a festival that called Israel to remember God's deliverance from Egypt and prepare for the Day of Atonement. Trumpets were blown as a symbol of both joy and warning, joy for God's salvation and warning of His coming judgment. This psalm fits perfectly into that setting, reminding the people of their covenant relationship with God and calling them to faithfulness. Verses 1 to 3. The call to celebrate. The psalm opens with a command: sing aloud to God our strength. Make a joyful shout to the God of Jacob. The image here is one of loud, passionate worship. Music, harps, tambourines, lyres, and trumpets is a central part of expressing gratitude to God. This teaches us that worship is not just a quiet reflection, but also a joyful proclamation of God's greatness. Verses 4 to 5. God's statute for Israel. We are reminded that celebrating God's deliverance was not optional. It was a statute, a law given to Israel. Why? Because God knows our tendency to forget. In times of comfort, we often forget the hardships God rescued us from. This section also ties back to the Exodus story, showing that obedience and remembrance are deeply connected. Verses 6 to 7. God's past deliverance. I removed his shoulder from the burden. His hands were freed from the baskets. This is a direct reminder of the slavery in Egypt. God delivered Israel when they cried out in distress. Even at Meribah, when they tested Him, He still showed mercy. This demonstrates God's faithfulness despite human rebellion, a theme that still speaks to us today. Verses 8 to 9. The call to listen. Hear, O my people, and I will admonish you. God warns against worshiping any foreign god. This is not just about idols made of stone or wood, but about anything we allow to take His place in our hearts. The principle here is timeless modern. Idols can be wealth, power, relationships, or self-ambition. Verses 10. God's provision. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Open your mouth wide, and I will fill it. This verse shows God's desire to abundantly bless His people when they trust Him fully. The imagery of opening your mouth suggests expectation and readiness to receive His provision. Verses 11 to 12. Israel's rebellion, 40 minutes and 0 seconds to 46 minutes and 0 seconds. But my people would not heed my voice. Here lies the tragedy. God's people refused to listen, so He gave them over to their stubborn hearts. This reflects a pattern in Scripture where persistent disobedience leads God to let people face the consequences of their choices. Verses 13 to 14. God's desire for His people. Oh, that my people would listen to me. These words carry deep emotion. God longs to bless, protect, and prosper His people, but obedience is the key. The promise here is that if they returned, He would quickly subdue their enemies. Verses 15 to 16. The blessings of obedience. The psalm ends with a picture of abundance. God would feed His people with the finest wheat and satisfy them with honey from the rock. This is symbolic of both material provision and spiritual sweetness for those who walk in His ways. Closing reflection and prayer. Psalm 81 teaches us that God's faithfulness is unchanging, but our obedience determines the depth of blessing we experience. As we close, let us commit to remembering His works, worshiping Him wholeheartedly, and removing any idols from our lives.